have some suggestions on how to dissolve eons of dogma from your consciousness. I have ideas about how you can elevate the quality of your thoughts and thereby elevate the vitality of your life. I'm Danielle Laporte, and this is With Love, Danielle. Hello, my loves. We talked about some spiritual definitions. We went over spirituality, spiritual bypassing, spiritual glamour, detachment, and conscience. Everybody's got one. So if you want to catch up and you haven't heard that yet, you can do this in any order. I thought we would do a part 2 of spiritual definitions because I got things to say. Let's talk about embodiment. Really popular term right now for all good reason. This is how I define embodiment. Embodiment is a consistency in what you think, say, and do. Embodiment really is integrity. The definition of integrity has its roots in wholeness. Embodiment is you committing to live a particular soul quality, a virtue. Let me give you some examples of virtues: divine love, compassion, forgiving, resilience, radiance, wisdom, loving kindness. Pick one. Pick one right now. You can pick as many as you want, but what's the one that really just kind of plucks your heartstrings? I'll go with divine love. And I use the term divine love so we get some distinction from pop song love, which isn't usually love at all. It's usually transaction, and I want you because you want me, and I'm going to get something out of this. It's going to validate my ego and my perceived wounds, and it's going to help me get on track with all these things that I wanted from my family or community of origin but never got, and I blame them for it, and I feel guilty for, and you being in love with me and me being in love with you, or you being my boss or whatever it is some kind of transactional thing to help me fill the perceived hole in my soul. I just made that up. That ain't love. That ain't love. So divine love is what I want to embody. That means my texts are going to be divinely loving. That means I'm going to eat from divine love. I'm going to choose things to put in my body that have been mindfully grown and raised that are loving. I'm going to be a loving leader. I'm going to be a loving mother. I am going to speak with a loving tone. Embodiment is I'm going to do all I can. I'm going to do the work to think loving thoughts, to have loving speech, and to do loving things. I will not get it right all the time. I will be inconsistent. I will be out of my heart center. My ego will make the choice for me. I will notice it because I'm here to be conscious. Just the act of noticing when we're not heart-centered is us being more conscious beings. That's one reason right there to not give yourself a guilt trip for when you misstep. You noticed it. It's brilliant, beautiful, and expanded that you noticed when you were off track. You're awake. Embodiment is when we teach from lived experience. And we won't always teach from lived experience. For some of us, it's textbook, and our service to the people around us, whether we're high school teachers or we're leading businesses or in the space of wellness, is to let people know what we found, what we're experimenting with, to lean on history and facts and metrics, and that has its place. Distributing and broadcasting knowledge is a form of service. It's not necessarily embodiment of wisdom. Wisdom comes from having done it. Wisdom comes from having had the experience where it was pain and we walk through it and we turn that pain into power and insight. Wisdom comes from being in the ditch and climbing out and choosing forgiveness. I talk about that in the last episode of Spiritual Definition. Embodiment is, I know this to be true, not I believe this to be true. Consistency from the heart, wholeness, a dedication to bringing the light into your thought, speech, and actions. It's a lot to ask for, and it's what we showed up for. Faith. Oh, I want to do a whole course on faith, actually. So I'm not talking about faith in a religious context, although I am going to give you a biblical quote right now. Hebrews 11 says that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. That's so brilliant. It is the evidence. How can you have evidence of something you haven't seen yet? It's because you have faith. So here's my very short definition of faith. Faith is believing that the light exists, even when it's dark. You could even say faith with a capital faith is knowing in every cell of your being with all of your energy bodies, in the vastness of your heart, that the light exists, even when it's dark. I can't see it, but I know it's here. Your heart sees it. You can't see it at the moment, but you know in the deepest part of your being of its existence. And you get to choose to tap the deepest part of your being and have faith. You got to dig. You got to be in that vastness of your heart. It's a decision. It's a choice. It's almost a willfulness of the heart, even though the heart is more about absolute, utter, full, unmitigated acceptance. You really bring the fire of the mind or the willfulness of the lower chakras where the creative ideas really come from. And you let those coalesce and be referred to, be sanctioned by your loving heart. You are so full of faith that you are actually embodying the light in the dark. You're the light everywhere you go because of your faith. I get way deeper into the dynamics of faith in my new course, Spiritual Essentials. If you want to go check it out, you become a member of Commune. So go to onecommune.com. That's ONE commune.com/Danielle. You'll see a new course there called Spiritual Essentials. It's like 5,000 hours, or maybe just like 6 hours, on me walking us through a spiritual audit process where we get to what I've called a devotional refresh, where you're going to ask yourself if your practices and your various definitions of spirituality are really serving you, and which ones do you want to keep and double down on, and which ones do you want to let go of. onecommune.com/Danielle. All right, let's talk about renunciation. How do you feel when I say the word renunciation? Because as a recovered Catholic, it kind of creeps me out. But I have learned a thing or two, and I am now in right relationship with renunciation. I'm not using the concept of renunciation to punish myself anymore. I mean, I used to look at the great mystics and even my really committed spiritual practitioner friends who were giving up sugar and taking a vow of celibacy and doing the silent retreats. And I just thought, oh my God, I need to do way more of doing so much less. But I'm human and I love chips and I love men, one really in particular who I'm very committed to. And yeah, here I am. So renunciation really has strong associations, at least for me, with aesthetics and Catholics and Buddhist begging bowls. But more relatably, renunciation is about just letting go for all the good, healthy, wise, loving reasons. Letting go on behalf of the divine. Letting go of illusions. Letting go of meaningless pursuits. Letting go of stuff, of all the objects, the material things that are keeping us working to please people who have never really considered loving us for who we are, letting go of renunciating all the doings, the activities that distract us from our dedication to higher love, to consciousness, our dedication, our devotion to revering the good stuff, the real stuff, the substance of life. So we want to renunciate so that we move things out of the way that are standing between us and deeper fulfillment, knowing truth with a capital T, being more loving. And when those things happen, we become, not always, but often and ideally, less anxious, less fearful, less striving, less obsessive. So are you formulating a list right now of the things you might want to let go of? You don't have to commit right now. I've talked in a couple podcast sessions about all the material letting go I've done over the last, now 3 years. And it hasn't been that intense or dramatic in the last year or so. Like, I let so much stuff go. But for those of you who haven't caught that story, and hey, this wasn't me being a monk. Like, I sold my house in Vancouver and made some great bank. And I let go of my hot car because my kid was turning 16 and getting his driver's license. And I thought, there's no way you were driving this. So yeah, it wasn't like deeply self-sacrificing for the collective. However, I did make some difficult decisions. And not that a good decision has to be difficult, but I did lighten my load a lot. Got rid of lots of clothes, and I got rid of lots of ideas, and I got rid of lots of striving, and pared my wardrobe right down. And, me with my 4 planets in Virgo, paring it down meant I just really want to wear neutrals and linen and cotton, and I just really need a couple pairs of jeans. Yeah, so here's another way to go about this in terms of renunciation. Again, it's really just about letting go of the things that are distracting you from being fulfilled. And fulfillment only comes from living a heart-centered life. All the other things are passing fancies and goals that, we can go crush it. But how do we feel afterwards? Go crush heart-centered goals. Get there fast if you want to get there fast. Get there and quadruple your income. Baby, 10x those heart-centered goals if you can, if you want to. Go, go, go. How about considering letting go of the things that are ravaging your nervous system? Could be as simple as quitting sugar, as simple and monumental. It could be like some Netflix, dialing down on social media. You know what you want to renunciate, if I might be so suggestive? How about renunciating doom scrolling? How about renunciating checking your phone first thing in the morning and last thing at night? How about that? Yeah, that's a big spiritual act. This leads us right into a definition of the lower self, because it's the lower self that will resist renunciating, letting go of the things that are keeping you down and toxic and all jangled up with nerves. Simple definition, the lower self is the false self. It is who you are not. It is the masks of the ego. Another way to look at this might be a little bit tough love, but the lower self is the personality. It's our ego identification. And it's okay, because guess what? Everybody has one. You have to have a lower self and a higher self to be whole. You have to have 3 lower chakras and the apex, the fulcrum of the heart chakra, and all the chakras above that to be a whole person. So this isn't about relegating, negating, or punishing ourselves because we have lower selves. It's part of the whole package. We all have a persona. The persona is essential to have to navigate in this outer world. It's like we are the middle ground between heaven and earth, not heaven and hell. Although sometimes I know it feels like hell down here. You need a persona to discern, to be identified, to be in community. We need to differentiate. We need to individualize in order to navigate through the collective. Where it becomes problematic is when we get out of balance, when we over-identify with our personality, when we have an excessive amount of personality constructs, which means opinions. Everybody's got opinions. The problem is having too many opinions about too many things and being too forceful and strong with those opinions. We got our nationalities. We've got our brands of our purse and our shoes and our cars. We have our political identifications and our religious and spiritual identifications and all the roles we play in the business, in the corporation, in the family. We have opinions about what it means to be all of those different roles and identities. And then it's a super slippery slope because we base our so-called worth on those identities and those opinions. And we need people to validate how good we are at being those different roles and playing those different identities. It's actually nuts balls, you know? It's like sandcastles of misidentification. It's really painful. It's really unproductive. It's part of the human journey. We are here to wake up to the fact that we are not completely and entirely and only our personality. We are not just this lower self. We are the whole of it. We are our higher self, our soul, our Buddha nature, our Christ consciousness that makes room for the lower and the higher and the higher and the higher. Speaking of higher self, should we try and define that? Well, it's impossible to define, but we're going to try. Before we wrap with a definition of higher self, the love note for this podcast session is an invocation that we're going to close with. So, you go to daniellelaporte.com/love notes, and there is this growing, burgeoning with light, free archive of different prayers and poems and bullet lists. Yeah, I love me a good bullet list of things that you can download, you can print out for your day planners, whatever you want to do with them. They're there for you. And this invocation that we'll wrap up with, I've designed it and I've put it in the love note section for you. Also, my final ask before we glide across this finish line of love is come on over to daniellelaporte.com/subscribe and make sure that you are actually getting my Wednesday wisdom posts and my sacred weekends posts where I drop you some love every Friday and lay out what a weekend of like fun lifestyle girlfriend, boyfriend stuff might look like, with Sunday being a day for some extra devotional zhuzh. daniellelaporte.com/subscribe. Soul, why don't we turn this into a prayer in a way? We'll go double prayer. If you can, just take a deep breath into your heart. And then I will offer these words that are just energies that are articulated. You feel into these. Which ones do you resonate with? And I'll give you a truth with a capital T if you want to get down with this. You are, we are all this. Divine nature. Soul. True nature. Higher self. Heart-centered. Unified self. Non-self. Beyond self. Spirit. Anima. Essential nature. true being, essence, Atman, Ka, core being, intuitive self, eternal self, inner wisdom, higher consciousness, angelic self, Hun, light, divine origin, you, soul. All we need to ever remember is that our personality isn't calling the shots, our soul is. And healing happens when we let our soul, when we turn to our soul, when we declare that we are receptive to the soul, the higher self, taking the lead to direct our lives. When we ask our higher self to inform our thoughts, our speech, and our action. And this is what it means to be heaven on earth, to be the heaven, to embody soul. There's an invocation that I've been using these last few months. If you've ever done a meditation with me or a visualization, you know that many months ago or a few years ago, we would open all of our practices with an invocation calling on higher deities and our higher self and our elders. I've created with VS, she's our energy healer. I've been working with her for 8 years, something much shorter, but more inclusive, way easier to remember. And this is now an essential part of my practice. I do this invocation before prayer, before meditation. Sometimes I do it before I'm brushing my teeth, before I apply my essential oils. And I will design this for you and put it in the love notes section on the site. And we will close with this. It goes like this. With love and gratitude, calling on the higher ones, including my higher self, my inner divinity, and my innermost light, for helping me to. And then what you're going to do is you're going to fill in the blank there. What are you calling on the higher ones, your higher self, your inner divinity, and your innermost light in support of? What are you asking for that light guidance to manifest, to create? I'll give you the whole prayer that I say to myself, and then we'll peace out. And by the way, a little side note here, you want to see all of these key words as capitalized. Love, capitalized. Gratitude, capitalized. These are soul virtues. We honor and respect them by capitalizing them. Your higher self, capital H, capital S, okay? With love and gratitude, invoking the presence of the higher ones, my higher self, my inner divinity, and my innermost light, for helping me to embody love. I'm so glad you're here. Always and always, thank you. With love, Danielle. Thank you so much for listening, for feeling, for spreading the word. With love.